Emily from Two Little Birds Patterns, and thank you so much for tuning into my video. This video is all about Intarsia Crochet from start to finish. What is Intarsia? Intarsia is a method of doing color work in crochet, and for the purposes of the patterns I design, it's any pattern that uses more than 2 colors. To do Intarsia, you need to be able to follow a graph similar to a counted cross-stitch graph, if you've ever done that. You also need to be able to use multiple bobbins of different color yarn to create the design. Have you tried it yet? Does it seem a little bit intimidating or tedious or messy? Well, I'm here to show you a few easy techniques that will hopefully ease your fears and answer any questions you have about doing this technique. This video goes step by step through a pattern I have designed for a pillow. This pattern is available as a free download, and you can click the link to get the pattern in the description box below. When you've downloaded your pattern, you can follow along with me as I crochet it. I'm going to go over how to read the graph, how to decide how many bobbins you're going to start with, how to introduce different colors, and how to make seamless color changes. And finally, I'm going to show you how to finish up the pillow. In the end, I hope that you find that Intarsia is a really fun crochet technique, and with just a little practice, you can master it too. Let's get started. So hopefully you were able to download the free pattern from the link in the description box. And with that free pattern, you will get this graph here for the pillow, the 12 by 12 pillow for the pattern that says beautiful. And that is what we're going to be making in this video. But first I'm going to talk about how to determine how many bobbins you're going to need for each color, and also how to read the graph. And let me just say that the symbols for the graph here are really specific to the patterns that I design. Any other patterns that you may get may have different symbols that mean different things. So this is really specific to my patterns. I mean, the concept is the same no matter what you do. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that. So let's go over the graph here. The graph has 46 stitches across, and each square on the graph is 1 single crochet. So it's going to have 46 single crochets across, and if we come up here, it's going to have 51 rows. And that is going to be a 12 by 12 panel using the Intarsia technique. In the graph legend, we have the color names and also some directional symbols. The black dot means that you will be working a right side row. So anytime there's a black dot, right here, 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 these are these are odd number rows. That means that when you're stitching that row, you're going to be looking at the right side of your pillow panel. And as you might imagine, the X means wrong side. So when you're stitching a wrong side row, which are the even number rows, that means that when you're stitching those rows, you're going to be facing the wrong side of your work. Now, the arrow here pointing towards the left means that you are going to be reading this row from right to left. So on the right side rows, which are the odd number rows, you will be following the graph from right to left. And then when you turn your work and you're working a wrong side row, the arrow pointing the other way means that you're going to be reading the graph from left to right. So that's what the graph symbols mean. And now that we know that, we can decide how many bobbins we're going to need of each color. Let's start with the teal, with the F. Okay, so we're going to start in row 4, which is the first row that we introduce this color. And we're going to be coming from left to right. So we're going to be stitching starting in row 4, stitch number 39 over here, okay? So we're going to be coming from left to right and going this way. And then when we come back around on row 5, we will pick up our yarn and come this way. And when we pick up the yarn in row 6, we will go this way. And these are one stitch right on top of the other, so there's going to be no traveling of the yarn. It's right there to pick up right where you need it. So this is going to continue on all the way this way till we get to row 9, and then when we pick up for row 10, same thing, it'll be right there. Come across 10, 11, and row 12. Now, when we get to the end of row 12, if you notice, you're going to not be picking up the teal yarn until you get to this stitch in row 13. And there is a 1, 2, 3, 4 stitch gap here of white stitches before you pick up this teal yarn over here. And that's too long to carry that yarn. So in this case, we are going to be cutting the yarn here, and then we can actually use this same bobbin that we used down here to begin here. So we're still just working with one bobbin. Okay, so we're going to use this bobbin coming this way, and then in row 14, we'll pick it up right there and come this way. And here we are again at the end of row 14, where we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitch gap before we pick up the teal yarn again in row 15, right here. So right here, we're going to cut this. And of course, when we cut, we leave a tail, which I will show you later on in the tutorial. And we're going to use that same bobbin and start again right here. And then coming across row 15, and then row 16, and row 17. And so in my determination here, we're really only going to need one bobbin that we're going to use 3 times in the letter F. Okay, so I'm going to put a 1 next to that F. Now let's go to the U. Let's see how much yellow yarn we're going to need, how many bobbins. Now, we're going to pick up our first bobbin of yellow yarn right here in row 4, coming this way. And it'll be right here to pick up in row 5. And I know there's a 1 stitch gap here. That's okay. 1 stitch is not a big deal. We can still use that same bobbin. And we're coming across this way. And then in row 6, it's right there. But uh-oh, we have 1, 2, 3 stitches of white that we're going to need before we pick up the yellow again in row 6. And we are going to get a new bobbin for this side of the U, because 3 stitches is a little bit too far to carry the yellow yarn behind those stitches. So I am going to stop this bobbin right here, and I'm going to add a new bobbin right here. And this new bobbin is going to take care of this whole side of the U. This bobbin, the original yellow bobbin, is going to continue on this side of the U. Okay, so we need 1 bobbin for this section and another bobbin for this section. And these 2 are going to be worked at the same time, so we definitely need 2 bobbins. We can't be cutting and then switching and then cutting and then switching like we did with the F, because with the F we were not going to be working anymore once we cut the bobbin where we cut it. So for the U, we're going to need 2 bobbins. I'm going to put a 2 there. Now let's come over to the L, which is the hot pink color. And here's my hot pink yarn. So our first stitch in hot pink is on row 4 on stitch 14 right here. And again, we're coming from left to right. So we're going to start here, and we're stitching, stitching, stitching. But now at the end of row 6, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches before we have to pick up the pink again right here. And that's too far to carry the pink yarn from here to there. So I'm going to cut my yarn here, and I'm going to use this same bobbin for the rest of the L. So I can just need 1 bobbin for the L, because I can use this same bobbin and continue all the way up the L. So I'm going to put a 1 next to the L. And I hope that you're understanding my thought process here. And again, if a different way works for you, that's okay too. And I can't say all the time that I don't cheat a little bit and carry my yarn when I'm not supposed to, but we won't tell anybody that. And for the purposes of this tutorial, we are going to go straight by the rules. So now let's go to the white, because from here, we're gonna start here and focus on this bottom section of the pillow. And not only are we going to need the colors, but we are also going to need the background color as bobbins as well. Let's figure out how many white bobbins we're going to need for this bottom third of the pillow. Now, of course, our first white stitch is going to be over here. Okay, so we're going to be stitching all white, all white, all white through row 3. And when we get to row 4, we're still gonna have our white until we get to the teal in the F, okay? And then we're going to stop the white here, and I'm gonna need a new white for this section, and a new white for this section, and a white over here. Okay, so this is one white, another white, another white, and another white. And then, let's see, when I come this way on the 5, and I come back on the 6, I've still got this bobbin. I'm gonna need another one for the middle of the U. Okay. This one will continue to work this section, and let's see, the 6 is gonna come over this way, going that way, and then the 7, row 7 is going to pick up there, and it'll be fine for the rest of this part here. So let's see any other places where I think I might need another white. This bobbin in here on row 9, I'm gonna end here, and then I'm not gonna pick it up until right here. But in this case, I can cut it and then continue using it this way. And I'm fine. Okay, so I only counted 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, this one should have been a 5. I know this is hard to follow. Okay, so I'm gonna need 5 white bobbins just on my first glance of what's going on. And if I'm wrong, I can always go back and add bobbins as I need to. But to start, that's a good starting point. We know that we're going to need at least 5 for these particular sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this middle section in the 5. And so we're gonna need 5 for the white. And maybe instead of writing it all over these letters, I should maybe write it here. So I'm gonna need 5 for the white, 1 for the pink, 2 for the yellow, and 1 for the teal. And that's where I'm gonna begin. I'm not really gonna worry about the second 2/3 of the graph right now, because once I get to the top of these letters, I know I'm gonna have a break, and I'm gonna just do 2 rows of all white, and then I can kind of reevaluate what I'm gonna need for the rest of these colors. I'm gonna get reorganized, I'm gonna clean these ones up, and we can start analyzing again when we get to here. Now, I wanted to also say a little bit about if you are a left-handed crocheter. This is all gonna work exactly the same. The only difference is that your right side is going to be right-handed wrong side. So it's all gonna come out the same, just where you keep your bobbins and your yarn tails is you're gonna keep them on what the pattern calls the right side. You know, it's all gonna work out the same. There's no differences in how you need to follow the graph. It's just when you take your bobbins to the wrong side, it's actually going to be what the pattern calls the right side. So now we're going to talk about how much yarn to use for each bobbin. And I really don't have a good scientific answer for this, but I can show you the method that I use, and hopefully that will give you a good place to start. For the teal yarn, we need 1 bobbin, and I have a total of 72 teal stitches that I am going to need to make. So basically all I do is I count to 72 as I pull the yarn. And I don't use actual paper bobbins. I just make a little ball of yarn. That just seems to be the easiest for me. But whatever works best for you, if you use the little cardboard pieces or the plastic bobbins that you can get in the craft store, that's fine. Whatever you choose to do. It's just when you're pulling the yarn, try to count to that as many stitches as you need. And that to me seems to be a pretty decent estimate of how much yarn I'm going to use for that area of color. So I'm going to count to 72 and make my bobbin.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
So I've counted to 72. I have a little yarn ball. I might add a little more just to be on the safe side. You know, it's hard to really pinpoint exactly how much you need, but I am going to be cutting the yarn, and I might need a little extra to have the ends to weave in. So a little extra doesn't hurt. Okay, and now I'm going to cut it. And there's my teal bobbin. Let's go to the yellow. Now for the yellow, I needed 2 bobbins. And in this section here, I have 1, 2, 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this one is going to be 36 stitches. And this one is, I haven't counted yet, but I will. And again, I'm going to use the same method. So I'm going to ball up the yarn and count as I pull it. And the reason I do that is because when I single crochet, I remember how much yarn I pull for each stitch when I make a single crochet. So I kind of just figured I would pull that much yarn to make the bobbin. And it tends to work out. So here we go. I'm going to count 36 for this bobbin on the yellow, and I'm going to do the same thing for this amount of stitches on the other side of the yellow for the U. Okay. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more just to be on the safe side. And I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to continue this process for the pink. To 57. I'm going to add a little bit more just to be on the safe side, and then I'm going to cut it. Now I need to make 5 white bobbins, and You know, I don't know exactly, I'm not gonna really count all the white stitches, but what I do know is that I'm gonna be using the white a lot throughout this pillow panel. So if I do have extra, I can use it later on in the graph. And then of course add more as needed. And then if I do have extra, I can add it to the back panel because the back panel is all white. So I'm gonna make 5 pretty decent size bobbins, knowing that I'm going to be using them throughout the rest of the pillow. Phew, that was exhausting. No, it wasn't so bad. Okay, so we have all our bobbins ready to go. We know what the graph symbols mean. We are ready to begin stitching this pillow. All right, so for this portion of the video, we are going to be focusing on the front panel, which is page 13 of the pattern. And starting at the top, we are going to start by making a foundation chain of 47 using only the main color. I'm gonna get my main color yarn, which is the white. So I'll take one of my bobbins here and I'm going to chain 47. So we did our chain 47, and the next step is to complete row 1, which says single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and then single crochet in each chain across. Make a chain 1 and turn for a total of 46 stitches. So this row 1 is row 1 on the graph right here, and this is all in the main color. If we then read on to row 2, we're going to single crochet in each single crochet across and chain 1 and turn for another total of 46 stitches. So that is row 2 on the graph. Again, all white single crochets on row 2. The pattern then says, repeat row 2 until you get to row 4 on the graph. And that is because on row 4 here, that is where we begin to use the Intarsia technique to create our color design. So what I'm going to do is just do my single crochets for row 1, 2, and 3, and then we will begin adding in our bobbins of color to make the F, the U, and the L. My first 3 rows of the front pillow panel, and now we are about to work row 4. And as you see on the graph, row 4 is a wrong side row. So I'm going to be working, this is going to be my wrong side, and I am working from left to right on the graph. That means that my first bobbin of color is going to be the teal. Okay, so I'm going to get my teal bobbin out, and now I have to count. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches, and then on the 8th stitch, I'm going to add in the teal bobbin, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to do 7 stitches in the white. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here's my 7th stitch. Now I am not going to complete this stitch all the way. I am just going to pull up a loop. I'm not going to finish that single crochet. Now here's the magic. I'm going to take this yarn and bring it forward. I am then going to take my teal bobbin and I'm just going to pull a loop through this stitch. Just simply pull the yarn through, just like that. There's no yarning over, nothing like that. You just pull the yarn through. And this is going to stay forward. And on my 8th stitch here, I'm going to start my teal stitches. And on the graph, there are 3 teal stitches. So I'm going to make 3. Okay. So I'm working with the teal right now. And I do 1, 2, and as I'm in the middle of that, I'm going to kind of just give these 2 just a slight tug just to make the transition stitch a little neater. Okay, just to make sure they're not all loose in there. Okay, so I did my first 2 teals. I need 3, but just because I have to then go back to white, I am not going to fully complete that last teal stitch. I'm going to just pull up a loop, bring my yarn forward, and I'm going to get my next white bobbin. And again, I am just going to pull a loop or pull the yarn through these loops. Very simply, like so. Now, as you can see, I am leaving my yarn tails and the bobbins on the wrong side of my work. I am leaving them forward, okay? They're all gonna stay on the wrong side of my work. If this was a right side row, they would all go back to the front, and we'll show you that on the next row. Okay, so I did my 3 teal stitches here, and now I'm working with the white yarn. And let me see how many stitches I need here. 6, there's 10 white stitches here before I get to the yellow. So I'm going to do 10 white stitches. 2, and again, I stop midway and just kind of give these guys a little tug just to make sure that they're nice and neat in there. There are no loose strands. So I have 2 so far. I got to count to 10. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then this is my 10th stitch, but I'm not going to complete it. I just pull up 1 loop, and now I'm going to bring my yarn forward again, my working yarn forward, and I'm going to grab my yellow bobbin, and again I am just going to simply pull this yarn through these 2 loops. Okay, and now I can begin working with the yellow, and this white bobbin is staying forward. Now I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 yellow stitches in this row, so I'm going to count to 7. 1, 2, stopping there so I can kind of tighten these guys up and make them a little bit neater. 3, 4, 5, 6, and then here's my 7th, which is the last one. I'm going to bring my working yarn forward, and I did not complete that last stitch. And now I need another white bobbin for 5 stitches. So I'm going to grab another white bobbin and simply just pull this yarn through those loops and begin working with the white, leaving my yarn tails and my bobbins in front because this is a wrong side row. And I need 5 white stitches. So 1, 2, stopping midway so I can kind of tighten these guys up. 3, 4, 5, my last stitch, so I'm not going to complete it. I'm going to bring my working yarn forward, and then I'm going to pick up my pink bobbin here for 8 stitches. I'm going to add the pink in by simply just pulling this yarn through. And I'm leaving a tail of about, I don't know, 4 inches or so. You can go longer if you feel like you need to. That's about what I typically use to have enough to weave it in at the end, but that's really up to you. Okay, so I need 8 pink stitches. 1, 2, stopping to tighten these guys up at the transition. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and here's my 8th, which I'm not going to complete all the way. I'm bringing my working yarn forward, and I'm going to get 1 more white bobbin for the remainder of this row. And again, I'm just taking the yarn like that and just bringing it through the unfinished stitch. And I'm going to finish. I should have 6 more white stitches before the end of the row. Hopefully I counted right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Perfect. And I'm going to chain 1, and now I'm going to turn my work. But oh my goodness, look at this mess. Okay, so here's what I usually do. Instead of flipping the work while all this is here in front, I bring everything now back up to the top in the order that it was used. So here's my white, here's my pink, here's my next white, here is my yellow, the next white, the teal, and the final white. The yarn tails I can leave forward, that's fine. And I'm not quite ready to weave them in. I like to weave in as I go, but I also like to have a few rows to weave them in because it's easier for me to weave it in a thicker area of its own color. So I like to wait till I get a few more rows done. Now here comes the turning part, okay? So I'm going to take this piece with my hands like this, and I'm going to gently twist it and turn it like that. And then again, in the same exact order that the bobbins are in, I take them one by one and put them back in their order. So I'm gonna come from this way and take the white and take the pink, and I take the white and then the yellow and so on. Okay, so now we are back in working order. That wasn't so bad. And you know, I do that every time. I really do. I really try to stay very organized when I'm doing this kind of crochet because it's very easy to get tangled and knotted up, and that is really no fun. So at the end of each row, I really take the time to reorganize my bobbins, and it's a lot easier to work when they're organized as well, because then you know which one you're about to grab. Now we're on row 5, which is a right side row, which is correct. I am facing the right side of my work, and we're going to be following the graph from right to left. Okay. I'm going to start with my white yarn, and I don't really have to count at this point because I know that the first pink stitch is directly above the last pink stitch right here. So, I mean, I can count to just double check that I'm doing it right, but you know, as you get used to doing this, you don't really need to count. You know that you can just start right above that stitch. And here we go. Okay, now I've come to the last stitch, the last white stitch before the pink. So again, I'm going to pull up a loop and bring my working yarn forward, like so. I am then going to take the pink yarn, which is ready to go here, and I am going to just pull it through those two loops. Okay, now here is where you need to really make sure you do this every single time. I brought my working yarn forward and I picked up the pink stitch, but now I need to bring this white yarn that I'm no longer using, I need to bring it back. So I'm going to put it back so that it is behind my pink stitches. It is in the past. Okay, we're not working with that one anymore. Now we are on to the pink. So I'm going to keep this one. That is actually supposed to go under here. Okay, so you can see, like the white is now behind and I'm ready to go working with the pink. And on the graph, I have the exact amount of pink stitches, so I'm going to go right to the edge of my pink section here. I'm going to show you that again when we get to the end of the pink. Okay, I'm on the last pink stitch here. So I'm going to pull up a loop. I'm not going to finish that stitch. I'm going to bring the working yarn forward. And I'm going to pick up the next color, which is the white, and just pull it through those loops, just like so. There's no yarning over, you just pull it right through those loops. Now, we're done with the pink, so I'm gonna bring the pink back to the other side, okay, because this is a right side row. So I wanna make sure that all my bobbins and my yarn tails remain on the wrong side. If I left this forward, it would be on the right side, and we don't want that. So when we're working a right side row, we bring the non-working yarn back. Okay, so now I have my white yarn. The pink is in the past. Okay, it's back here, you can see. And I'm ready to begin my white stitches. Now, for this one, we have 4 white stitches because we're going to start the yellow one before the previous yellow. So we need to count 4 white stitches and then we begin the yellow for the U. One, oops, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not going to complete that stitch. I'm bringing the working yarn forward. I'm going to grab my yellow and I'm just going to gently pull it through those stitches. I'm going to bring my old yarn, which is the white, back to the other side so it is in the past, and then I'm going to begin stitching with the yellow. I need a total of 9 yellow stitches, but instead of counting, I know now that I can just go one beyond the previous yellow right here. come to the end here, but I'm gonna go one beyond, which is this one. I'm gonna pull up a loop. I'm not gonna finish that stitch. I'm bringing now my working yarn, which is the yellow, bringing it forward. I'm then going to pick up the white yarn, which is right here, ready to go. And I'm going to just pull it through those loops. I'm then bringing my yellow back to the other side so it is in the past. It's back here, it's going this way. We're now working with the white. And we're going to go all the way over here to the same spot where we picked up the teal last time. And we're gonna do 3 teal stitches. And the piece is this small, it's kind of tough to not have it wobble all around. It gets a little easier the more rows you have worked up. Okay, here's our last white stitch. I'm just pulling up one loop. I'm then bringing my working yarn forward, and I'm going to pick up the teal just by pulling it through those loops. I'm then bringing the white yarn back to the other side so it is, so it's in the past. Okay, and now I'm going to be working with the teal for 3 stitches. And now I'm done, so I did that last stitch halfway, bringing my working yarn forward and picking up the white by pulling it through those loops and bringing my teal back before I begin stitching with the white so that it is on the wrong side. And then I'm going to continue with the white to the end. Okay, so now we've completed row 5. And as you can see, my color changes are very neat, okay? And flipping from the right side back to the wrong side is a little bit easier because our bobbins are already in their correct order. So again, I'm gonna take this like this and just give it a twist. Okay, and then rearrange the bobbins in their order. Starting over here, here's the white, and then the teal, and then the white, then the yellow, another white, then my pink, and the white is over there. Okay, and row 6 is a wrong side row, and we will be reading the graph from left to right. Okay, so let me start by crocheting, and remember that we are now working a wrong side row, so all the bobbins are going to stay in front, not go behind. Work my white until I get to the teal. Okay, I've come to my last white stitch. I'm going to pull it up halfway, bring the working yarn forward, pick up the teal through those loops, and I'm leaving my white forward because I want this to stay on the wrong side here. Okay, I want the white to stay on the wrong side. And I'm going to do 3 teal stitches. Still on the bottom of the F. And I'm going to bring the teal forward. I'm going to pick up the white. and I am going all the way across to exactly where I left off on the yellow for the U. Sorry, this is so wobbly. It's just so hard to control when it's small. Oops. Hey, get out of there. Okay, now here's my last white stitch. I'm going to pull it up halfway, bring the white forward, and I'm going to pick up the yellow, but this time I'm only doing 3 yellow stitches, and then I need to add in that 5th white bobbin for the middle of the U. Okay, so I'm going to hold my white yarn forward. I'm going to pull my yellow through those loops. I'm going to do 3 yellow stitches. 1, 2, 3. Bring my yellow forward. I am going to add in that 5th white bobbin here, just like we did in the beginning. I'm just going to take it like that and pull it through. I'm going to do 3 white stitches for the middle of the U. 1, 2, 3. Bring my white forward, and then I need to add in the other yellow bobbin for the other side of the U. Okay, and remember, all bobbins and yarn tails are staying in front because this is a wrong side row. 1, 2, 3 yellow stitches. I'm going to just kind of tighten those guys up. 3 yellow stitches, the last one being done halfway, bringing my working yarn forward. And now I can continue the rest of the row. We're going to do 4 whites here and then pick up the pink again. Bringing the white forward, picking up the pink, and going all the way across for the final row of the bottom of the yellow, of the pink for the L. Okay, picking up the white. Okay, and there we have it. Okay, now as we talked about in the previous portion of the video, we were planning on cutting the pink when we were done here, because the next time we need pink, when we come around on row 7, it's going to be 5 stitches in that way, and we're going to need to start a new bobbin. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my pink, leaving a tail so I can weave that in right there. And then I'll have this pink ready for when we begin that. So let's flip our work. We're going to bring everything back up in the correct order, which is here. And try not to get overwhelmed with all the mess. If you take it one at a time and just, you know, figure out where each one goes, it's really not that bad. And I mean, we're working with quite a few bobbins here, and it is definitely doable. Okay, so here we are, and we are ready to flip. I'm gonna take this and just gently twist. Okay, and then rearrange starting from left to right. So here's our white. We got rid of that pink for now, so we have another white. We have the right side of the yellow, the middle white, the left side of the yellow. Okay. And there it is. Okay, we're gonna do row 7, and I'm gonna do this right side row one more time. And then everything beyond that is pretty much repetitive from what I already went over. So I will come back after row 7 when the F, the U, and the L are complete. But let's do one more right side row here. Okay, I'm gonna do my whites. Now, this time in row 7, the whites go all the way over and we go in 5 more stitches over top of the pink. So you have to make sure of that. And then we're gonna add in that pink bobbin right there on stitch number 12 of row 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bring the working yarn forward. I'm going to add in my pink bobbin here for the left side of that L, and I'm just pulling that yarn through those loops. I'm bringing this white yarn back over to this side, oops, because now that is a thing of the past, and we are going to continue working with the pink for 3 stitches. I'm just going to tighten these guys up a little bit. 1, 2, and 3. Bring my pink forward. I'm going to pull the white up. I'm going to bring my pink back because I don't need it anymore. I'm doing 4 white stitches before I get to the yellow for the U. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring this white forward, and I mean the whole bobbin, not just the strand, the whole thing. I'm going to pick up this yellow for 3 stitches. One, 2, 3. Bring it forward. I'm going to pick up the white for the middle, bring the yellow back since I'm working a right side row. I'm going to do 3 white stitches, 1, 2, and the third one halfway. Bring it forward. Pick up the next yellow. Bring my yellow forward, pick up the white, bring the yellow back, till I get to the teal. I'm going to bring that white forward, pick up my teal, and bring the white back. bring the teal forward, pick up the white, and bring the teal back, and finish my row 7. Oops, I split my yarn there. Okay, so that completes row 7. And again, like I said, if you follow that process by bringing the yarn back when you're on a right side row and keeping the yarn forward when you're on a wrong side row, you will have very nice transitions from one color to the next. And I mean, the work is pretty neat, and keeping an even tension throughout, tightening up the stitches as at the transition points. And your work should come out really nicely if you follow those steps. I'm going to keep going, and I will come back when this section is done. All right, so here we have it. I finished the F, the U, and the L, and now I'm going to show you my trick. Well, it's not really a trick, but I'm going to just show you what I do when I cut my bobbins and weave in my ends. I'm going to flip my work because I'm pretty much done with this section aside from 2 rows of white above the letters here for now. So I'm going to leave this, where is it? This white bobbin here, which I'm probably going to need more of, but that's okay. I can add in the bobbin later. I'm going to cut, leaving a few inches for a tail of all the bobbins that I am no longer going to be using for a little bit. And I prefer to weave my ends in as I go. I don't like to leave them for the end of the project. I find that to be a little bit overwhelming, so I like to do it a little bit at a time. And even this is a lot, so I'm going to do it now. So I'm just leaving a few inches for tails here, so it's easy to weave them in. I'm going to grab my yarn needle. And the way I like to do this so that the ends don't end up coming through to the other side is I like to weave them in their own color at least 3 different directions. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll take this teal tail, this teal tail, for example, and I'm going to go under the back loops of these stitches here. Okay, so that's 1. And then I'm going to come back the other way through some different loops. That's 2. And then I'm going to go back a 3rd time. And that's 3. And then I feel safe that I can cut this and it's not going to come loose and it's not going to show through to the other side. And luckily, this is the back of a pillow panel, so you're not going to see this. It is going to be covered, you know, when the pillow is inside. So it doesn't quite make that much of a difference if it's a little bit on the messier side. So we can leave these kind of hanging out, and that's okay. And I'm going to go ahead and continue with the rest of the yarn tails, weaving in their own colors at least 3 times. Okay, I'm on my last one here. And there we go. All done. And it is stitched neatly on the back. It is stitched neatly on the front. And I'm ready to begin row 18 and 19, which are just plain white rows. And then we'll come back and reevaluate for bobbins for the U and the T and the I. And we'll be able to reuse some of the bobbins in the first row eventually, but we'll also be able to reuse the white bobbins in this middle section. So we're not wasting any yarn at this point. We definitely can continue using the leftover that we have. So I will see you back when it's time to go over the rest of the pattern. I finished crocheting rows 18 and 19, which are these plain white rows above the F, the U, and the L, so right here. And we're ready to look at the graph again. And this time, I'm just gonna do a quick recap of how to calculate your bobbins for the remaining 2 sections of the graph. Let's start with the U in blue. Now this U is exactly the same as this U, and I remember that for the yellow U, I needed 2 bobbins, so I need 2 blue bobbins for that U. That was easy. For the T, I need 1 bobbin for the purple, because for the bottom of the T here, I'm going to be using 1 bobbin, and then I'm going to cut the bobbin right here when I complete row 30, right here. And then I can reattach the bobbin up here in the next row and finish the last 2 rows of the T. So 1 bobbin is going to be fine for the purple. And then for the I in fuchsia, we're gonna need 1, just obviously because it's 1 straight line up. So 1 for the fuchsia. Let's come up here to the B in hot pink. We're going to need 2, I can see, for this side of the B and this side of the B. And then I'll be able to cut one of them to complete, actually, this one will be cut right here. I'll finish row 41 right here and bring it back up to row 42. And use that bobbin for this row and here. But right here in this space of 3 white stitches, I'm then going to reattach my second bobbin from down here to complete the remaining right side of the B. So for this one, at any given time for the B, I'm gonna need 2 pink bobbins. For the E, I'm only gonna need 1. Because I'm coming across on row 35 when the yellow begins, and I'll then come back on row 36. I will cut right here, reattach for this section. I will cut right here, reattach for this section, cut on row 44 right here, or excuse me, wait. I'm sorry, that was a mistake. Actually, this will just continue up these rows here. When I come to row 46, this is where I was gonna cut, right here. And then reattach on row 47, right here. So for the E, I'm just gonna need 1 yellow bobbin, probably a decent size for that many stitches. And then for the A, I'm going to need 2 teal bobbins, 1 for this side, 1 for this side. I'll be able to cut one of these and continue the line across, and then eventually I'll need to reattach for this other side, or whichever one, wherever I needed to cut it. So I have 2 separate sections here that I'm gonna need 2 bobbins for, but we'll use the cutting and reattaching method to complete the top of the A. So for the A, I'm gonna need 2 in teal. Now, from earlier, I have a little bit of pink left, I have a little bit of yellow left, and I have a little bit of teal left, and of course I have a lot of the white left, which I'm going to be using throughout and I'm probably gonna need some more white bobbins as well. But I didn't wanna go into too much detail in this part because we already went over the method of how to do it for the bottom third of the pattern. And I hope that that was understandable and we can just apply that for the rest of the pillow. So when I come back, I will have these two sections stitched up and ready to go. And I will talk about stitching the back panel, and I will also talk about assembling the two panels so that we can put in the pillow insert and stitch it up and it will be complete. All right, so I'm working on finishing up the front panel, but I'm gonna just take a little bit of a detour here and we are going to talk about working up the back panel in this portion of the video. So if you go to page 12 in the pattern, it is titled Back Panel, and what we're going to do is basically just make a square using single crochets. And if we follow the directions here, it says foundation chain, chain 47, and then we're just going to be making single crochets in each of those chains for a total of 46 stitches across, and then we're going to continue making single crochets until our panel measures 12 inches because this pillow is a 12 by 12. Now it says here that when you are finished crocheting row 2, which gives you a little strip of the length of your panel, you just want to kind of make sure that your stitches total about 12 inches long. And if it's longer, you may need to start again with fewer starting chains, and if it's shorter, you may need to start again with more starting chains. This is just due to the variance in all of our stitching. Some people stitch bigger, some stitch a little tighter, and the moral of the story is just that you want your panel to be about 12 by 12. Okay, so this gives you a pretty close guideline on how to get that size, but again, it's important to check your personal gauge and adjust as necessary. So I'm gonna go ahead and chain 47 with my main color yarn and work up a few rows and we'll get the back panel complete. Okay, here's my chain 47. And I am just going to make single crochets in each chain across for a total of 46 stitches. So I'm going to go into my second chain here and work across. I have 46 single crochets across. I'm going to complete row 2 and then I'm going to measure just to make sure that I am on the right track. All right, I'm going to grab my measuring tape and make sure that I am at about 12 inches. Oh my. Oops, there we go. And I am pretty much right on the nose there. Yarn is stretchy, so if you're a little bit under, that's fine. It'll stretch to fit the pillow form, but we're pretty close here. Okay, so now we can keep going and we're just going to be making rows of single crochets until this back panel here measures 12 inches tall, which in the pattern it says it's going to be about 50 to 55 rows. So when you get close to that, maybe measure and see where you're at and see how much farther you have to go, because we are going to get this tall. Okay? I will come back when my back panel is done. All right, I finished the back panel, which is right here. I also completed my front panel and completed all the weaving in of those ends as well. So if you are at this point in your project, I am going to show you how to assemble the pillow, which is the most exciting part because it is almost done. All right, so here's what I do. I lay my panels out and I am going to put right sides together. So this is the right side of this one, this is the right side of this one, and I'm going to lay them together. Now, a lot of times the panels don't quite match up in size, and that's okay. I have that problem myself. Even I do this all the time, and I still get sometimes some slightly different size panels, and that's okay. And I'm going to show you how to still complete the finishing of the pillow even if you have that issue, because it's not a huge deal. So again, I lay my panels right sides together so that they match up as best they can. I am then going to use my stitch markers to pin the panels together so that they don't shift around as I'm slip stitching them together. These are the stitch markers I have. I've had these guys forever. So I'm just gonna take a little stitch marker and start up here in the corner and just pin it together. I'm gonna do my corners first. Okay, so the top matches up pretty well. Okay, and then I am going to come down here to the bottom and I'm just gonna kind of stretch it a little bit just so it's as even as possible. And I'm going to pin my bottom corner together. Oh, get in there, there you go. I'm gonna come around to this side and pin this corner, okay? Just gotta kind of play with it a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the sides. And I start in the middle and then I fill in the rest. So it's even, as even as possible. Yarn is very forgiving. So if it's not perfect, that is still okay. It really is. I've done this a million times and it always comes out okay. Okay, and we'll do this other side. Now notice I'm not pinning the bottom because that's where we're going to put in the pillow insert when we flip it right side out. And I'm going to sew that up with a yarn needle. So I'm just doing the 3 sides. Okay. All right, that's pretty good. I'm then going to take my main color yarn and I'm going to be slip stitching around all 3 of these sides. I'm going to start down here in the bottom right hand corner so I can remove this stitch marker. I'm going to put my hook through both panels as close to the edge as possible. And pull this yarn through. Okay, and then I'm just going to go as evenly as I can down this side of the pillow using slip stitches. The places to put your hook are not exact, but you just kind of make the best of it. You can kind of find the best places to insert your hook. And as I work my way down, I can remove the stitch markers as I go, but they kind of hold the panels in place so they don't move around as I'm stitching. Just doing a slip stitch all the way down the sides, making sure that my hook goes through both panels and stays as close to the edge as possible in a straight line. Oops. And you can see so far my slip stitches down the side, nice and even, as uniform as they can possibly be. So we see I did slip stitches on the 3 sides of the pillow, the right, the top, and the left. Okay, and here's the other side, and it's as even as it could have been. And now I am going to cut right here. Oops, did that come out? It's okay. Just so I have a little end to weave in. And this is the fun part. I'm going to turn this inside out, or right side out, I should say. Push out all the corners. We are at the home stretch here, guys. This is exciting. I'm going to then take my pillow insert, which I have right here. I just got this one at Joann Fabrics. It's a 12 by 12. And we are now just going to insert the pillow here. Now, don't be worried if this is a little bit smaller than the pillow insert, or if it looks like it's not gonna fit. It will, it's going to stretch, and that's a good thing because you want your pillow cover to fit snugly around the pillow insert, so it's nice and firm. So we're just going to gently get it in there. Making sure to get those corners nicely in the corners there. Okay, we are almost done. Now, we are going to take a long piece of our main color yarn here. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my stitch markers here, and I'm going to take the bottom of the pillow and I'm going to, again, use my stitch markers to pin the sides together so that they are even and they don't move while I'm sewing them. I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm going to take my stitch markers, find the middle, and just gently pin it together. I'm then going to go to the outer sides. And then fill in the spaces. And this just helps when I'm sewing it together, just to keep it even. Okay, and for a pillow this size, well, maybe I'll put one more in here just to secure it really well. Now, I've cut a pretty long piece of my main color yarn here. And using my yarn needle, I am going to whip stitch the bottom of the pillow. And I am not a sewer, but the whip stitch is super easy. So we've sewn up the bottom, and let me show you how I hide my ends now. I just take my yarn needle, I weave it in on the back side to a spot maybe right about there. I pull it through, and then I pull it so it goes like that. I cut it right at the bottom there, and then I just give it a little tug and it gets tucked underneath. Nobody even knows it was there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. tucked in there. We are done. And you should be so proud of yourself that you've gotten to this point. You can just kind of shape it out, give it a little shake to even out the filling. And look at this beautiful pillow. Congratulations on learning Intarsia Crochet. I hope this video was really helpful. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me through Instagram at tlbpatterns or on Gmail at twolittlebirdsPatterns@gmail.com. Thanks for joining me, guys. This was a lot of fun, and I'll see you soon.